welcome to our latest webinar. This is marketing focused, so I'm going to be doing most of the talking, but James will be keeping an eye on the chat panel to let me know if anyone's got any questions. So you can use chat or Q&A section for that, and James will chime in and ask me as we go through, and then there's obviously time at the end if anyone has any further questions, so just let me know. If you see me keep turning my head, it's just because I've got a different screen with what's coming up next, so I don't start to ramble. So try and keep us on track, and you may see a cat running around in the background. Unfortunately, I can't seem to control that. So let's get started. So why are we all here? Well, things changed. They changed quite dramatically, and they're continuing to change as we move through the pandemic and the different government guidance on what we're doing. So where are we now? What should we be doing? And how is that different to the start of this situation and what's coming up next? So quick intro from your hosts. So I'm Natalie, I'm head of growth at Spider Group. I've been working in marketing for over 15 years. James started Spider Group over 17 years ago. So between us, we've got 30 plus years experience in this area. Like I said, marketing's more my area, so that's why I'm doing most of the talking. So what happened? Well, the world changed. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear that. It changed pretty rapidly, and we've all had to deal with that on a personal, social, and professional level. Obviously, this webinar is about the professional level, the marketing side specifically, but we need to bear in mind that personal and social side of things as well, because we're dealing with people in a very different environment than we would normally be dealing with them. So ignoring what type of marketing we should be doing, we need to recognize the type of people we're speaking to and how our roles as individuals have changed. So for example, James is CEO of Spider Group, and that's how our clients and prospects know him. But at the moment, he's juggling that with being husband and dad at the same time as being CEO. So we need to recognize that people's focus is a lot more split than it's ever been, and social is intruding, personal is intruding into the professional. And we need to recognize that in our marketing and frankly, all the conversations that we're having with people over the past few months and the coming months. So what happened at the very beginning? Well, a lot of companies called a screeching halt to everything that they considered expendable. Chief among many of them was marketing. And there were loads of reasons for this. Obviously, cost saving was a big one. We were worried about how much we're spending on different things in an uncertain time. But we also have the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of it being inappropriate to do marketing, and the idea that people wouldn't be spending money, so what's the point? You've probably seen this quote on LinkedIn a lot lately, which is, stopping marketing to save money is a lot like stopping the clock to save time. It's not a good strategy. It doesn't actually achieve what you're doing. And that's why we're here, because we recognize that stopping marketing isn't necessarily the best approach, but we've got to get it right. And not everyone is avoiding spending money. You know, there are people still buying, people signing up new clients, people selling new products. So stopping marketing is not the answer. What we had on the other side was the companies that continue to do marketing now found themselves in a balancing act between the need to continue doing business and doing that marketing to bring in that business, and the sensitivity around doing that in a crisis. You know, those who appeared to be a bit mercenary and take advantage were actually not well thought of, and that perception of them will carry over long after this situation has passed. Others went a little bit too far the other way, and everything was about coronavirus. They didn't talk about anything but that, but they were still pushing product. So they were still talking about their products, but with that sort of fake sympathetic, everything is very difficult right now kind of tone. Neither of which really struck that balance that we're trying to find. So how can we keep that balance? That's pretty much what this webinar is about. But it's all about adding value. Forget the product, forget the service. It's not what people care about right this second. And we're going to go through some different approaches, some different tactics that you can use see how they've shifted since the start of the pandemic and how they're shifting now and again moving forwards. So one of the first things that shifted was our language. And be honest, how many of these have you seen and frankly said in the last few months? I'll be honest, I've said all of them. And while I'm going to try not to, I will probably say some of them throughout this webinar. Like I said, I'm going to try not to, because anything that's overused like these words have become becomes noise and it becomes a caricature. So, you know, you'll see more memes about the word unprecedented than people taking it seriously now. So we need to shift our language. That's the first thing we need to do as we move from the beginning stage of the pandemic to this stage and moving forward afterwards. So it's slightly less formal. It's slightly more future focused, but without ignoring that, you know, we are still in the midst of difficult times. See, there you go, I said one of them. The less formal, so you will have seen a lot of emails. I hope you and your family are well. And it became a little bit of a, you know, hope you had a nice weekend type thing. We don't need to have that level of apparent concern at this stage. We do need to recognize that a lot of people have been affected, but let's go back to language that's a bit more natural and a little bit less stuffy. So the tactics at the start of this situation were, as I mentioned before, add value, add to the conversation, help people, give something away, be sensitive, and don't sell. That was the key marketing tactic. It was about being present. It was about building your brand, building recognition of who you are, and the values that you hold as a business. Now that we're moving to a different phase, those tactics are still in play. And frankly, I hope they remain in play forever, because adding value, adding to the conversation and being recognizable as a brand that cares about things, they're all good marketing tactics regardless of what situation we're in. But we can now start to bring product or service back in a small way. We shouldn't be pushing it, but we can include in our adding value the concept of the value that we'll add to someone after they've worked with us. So how do we start using these tactics? Webinars. So you will have seen that a lot of people are doing a lot of webinars at the moment. We're one of those people. You know, we've got a series of, I think, 9 or 10 webinars lined up. And there's a really good reason for a lot of people doing webinars at the moment. They're a really great way to showcase your expertise and give people something they can take away and do themselves. So think about what value you can add, what insights you can share. It's not about our product. We're not talking about what we do here. We're talking about what you can do. And that's what webinars should be. They should give people something actionable or something insightful that they can take away and feel like they've achieved something with that time they've spent. Webinars were happening before all this started. It's not like they're a new thing that's come up. So they'll continue. But when you have something like a webinar that has become ubiquitous and everyone is doing it, you need to be really careful to add value and make them something useful. But you can then use them after you've finished. So we will have a recording of this webinar that will go onto YouTube, it will go onto our website, we'll have a transcript. So all of that content is still available and still useful to people even afterwards. Some people do gate that content so that you have to sign up to their mailing list in order to get it. That's a valid option. So, you know, if you've got something really valuable, then why shouldn't you sort of ask for something small in return, like an email address? Others will just use it blank on the website so that anyone can access it, and that has an SEO value to it. So there are really good ways to use the content that you have created in future endeavors. Video is the next tactic that everyone should be using. People are using more. It's become more important over the last 10 years, frankly, and was always on a trajectory to be really, really valuable. Now that we're all separated, now that we're all in our own homes with very few people getting out and about, it's even more useful. So, you know, if you're conducting business online, I can't come in and meet you. I can't come and see your product in action. You could write me an email, you could write a blog post about it, but actually a video will give me a much more tangible sense of who you are, what you do. It puts a face on the business. So when you're not having in-person meetings, obviously a lot of us are having video meetings, but even before that, having your face and an active face rather than just a photograph just gives people a sense of who you are. And that can be a really useful thing generally, but particularly when we're all isolated and feeling the lack of connection. There's loads of different types of video you can do. So I mentioned product. So a product explainer video for people who they know they need something, but they don't really know exactly how your product works. Testimonial videos are always a valuable type of video because people can see from a real person what your business does and what value you can provide. We're using a few different types ourselves. You may have seen some of our animated videos on LinkedIn promoting webinars and virtual networking. And James and I also do talking heads type videos where we talk to the camera to engage with our LinkedIn audience, to promote, things like this webinar. I posted a video about it a week or so ago. And so people get to know who I am a little bit better. Think about your backgrounds with videos. Obviously, these days, people are a lot more accepting of something other than an office background or a very polished background. I sit in front of my bookshelves because I quite like that. I haven't organized my books so that I look more impressive, but some people have certainly done that. The whole point is to give a sense of who you are and what it might be like to work with you, to meet with you. So then we have written content. So you will have probably seen that there is a ton more written content out there at the moment. Obviously, the people who are still doing marketing potentially have a little bit more time to get stuck into written content, or they recognize that actually, if they can't go out and speak to people and sell to people, they need people to come to them, and content marketing and inbound marketing are really key ways to do that these days. The content that's being produced isn't sales focused content. It wasn't at the start, and it's still not heavily sales focused now. It's much more, again, about adding value, about giving advice, about giving insights that people can take away and do something with. That providing value is really important because people are scared, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic, but there are still plenty of people who are scared either from a personal level or from a professional level as to how their businesses will survive, will continue, whether they'll be able to weather this kind of situation. So giving something away, you're not asking anything in return, but something that people can really take hold of and do something with, not only gives them a good feeling that's associated with your brand, but it builds you up as a trusted source. And the whole point of marketing during any kind of crisis is not to make sales, it's to build that brand and to build that perception of who you are and that I can trust you. You know what you're talking about, your expertise is clear, but also you're willing to share that with me because we're all in this together. So that kind of written content, and that could be blog posts and articles, it can be ebooks, it could be white papers. If you've got some really important research that you've done or some insights that other people might not have, sharing that kind of content, and then you can make a video about it as well. You can use snippets of it on social media. You can really promote that content in lots of different ways to expand your audience. And the more helpful it is, the more likely people are to share it with their network and build your brand even further that way. So it's a fundamental area of content marketing. The type of content maybe has shifted to being much, much more helpful. But again, let's hope that continues because that's a really valuable way of doing marketing. I'd much rather work with people that I trust and can see their expertise than someone who just sends me an email and that's that. So the other tactic, and this is one that we've used, I've got a couple of examples, but it's time to think outside the box of what you think marketing might actually be. Do you think marketing is ads in the paper? Do you think it's billboards? Do you think it's blog posts? it doesn't have to be those things. It is those things, but there are other ways you can do marketing. So, for example, we started AltNet, which is our virtual networking event. It's held every Wednesday. This isn't an AltNet promo. But what we wanted to do was empower businesses to stay connected at a time where those drop-in networking events obviously were all cancelled. A lot of the networking events where you have to be a member have moved online, but the ones where you just show up and meet new people, those have sort of fallen by the wayside. So we wanted to keep people connected. Connection is one of the key fundamental areas of our brand, so it's very on brand for us. But also it's a valuable thing that people are really finding useful. So, you know, we have attendees telling others about us on LinkedIn because someone says, oh, does anyone know of any networking that's going on? And one of our regular attendees posts, yeah, actually AltNet, that's brilliant. Sorry, I've got a cat trying to participate. No, let's please go away. So
it's always helpful in the middle of a webinar, isn't it?
It's brilliant. Yeah, I did try and lock them up, but they ripped up the carpet, so that didn't work either. See, this is what I mean about the professional and the personal just smacking into one another at the moment. So I do apologise for that. Yes, don't shut down my computer either. So what was I saying? I go back now that the cat has managed to delete my slides. So yeah, people are promoting us and their networks are hearing about us. And so we're not doing AltNet to sell our services. You know, we don't pitch at anyone on there. Everyone gets the opportunity to talk about their business for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, just like in regular networking. Another example that I really liked was Action Coach Bristol. So Gary Keating is an action coach, and he invested his own budget in getting the UK's #1 sales trainer, Andy Bounds, to do a webinar. All of Gary's coachees were invited free of charge, but in return they had to invite 2 new people. So what happened was all of those attendees got a really valuable webinar, and I have to say it was absolutely brilliant. They all got that, and Gary, people say, well, is this a marketing opportunity? Of course it is. There are a whole lot of people who had never heard of Gary, had never heard of Action Coach, who now have, and their impression of that is they got something really, really useful to them. So it's not just about the traditional side of marketing. Think about ways that you can do something different, start something that will give people something to take away, remember, and then the next time they see your brand pop up, their perception is, oh yeah, Spider Group, they did that networking thing. That was really good. I'm assuming they're thinking that was really good. We do get good feedback. So advertising. Turns out my cat deleted that slide from, there we go. So advertising is one of the ways that obviously marketing promotes businesses. Bear with me 2 seconds. I've just got to undo whatever deletion my cat did so that I can actually.
So I just add while Natalie's doing that. If you have any questions while we're going along, feel free to sort of pop any questions in the Q&A section or in the chat.
Thanks, James. Right, I've got my slide back. So PPC is one form of advertising, and social media is another form of advertising I want to talk about. PPC is much more reactive. Someone is searching for something and you appear. Whereas social media is more proactive. You're putting yourself in front of people before they know what they need. So there are 2 different approaches that we obviously do with that kind of thing. Not a huge amount changes with PPC, apart from the fact that Google are, they crack down on anyone who might be capitalizing on the crisis. So if you're a cleaning company, you can't suddenly start saying, yeah, coronavirus cleaning. You can talk about deep cleaning, but you can't use COVID or coronavirus in your ads. But aside from not capitalizing on a crisis, if people are searching for what you're offering, then you want to be there. Not a big change. Social media advertising, slightly different. Previously, it was a bit more product focused. Obviously, as we've talked about, that's no longer the case. So think about promoting posts that you wouldn't normally promote. So sharing your webinars, sharing the content that you've created. For a lot of us on Facebook, organic reach isn't very, very high. It's described as pay to play nowadays on Facebook particularly. So promote some of those posts. Anything that gets more engagement than you used to, promote that further, because you are still building your brand. You might not get the conversions that you used to see, but you can still push that brand awareness side of things. Being present is really important, and people are spending a lot more time on social media. We have more downtime. That 5-minute break away from the computer in the office, we no longer go make a cup of tea and chat to a colleague. So we're more likely to scroll through Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. So that presence, just recognition, people tend to trust businesses that they've seen more often. That recognition is really, really important. If you have any good news stories, corporate initiatives that are helping people, or some charity work, or anything that isn't necessarily directly related to your business, but gives people a good feeling, because let's face it, we're all crying out for things that are happy and things that make us feel better right now. So really honing in on that is important with advertising. And then connection is one of the key areas that we're lacking. We're not spending time with people, certainly not in 3 dimensions. We're spending time with people on a screen. And as humans, we crave connection. We really, really want to be close to one another. We want to have meaningful conversations. We want connection. And that's the thing that's missing, and that's the thing that our marketing needs to bring back. So empathy and sensitivity are really, really, really important in whatever tactic you use. But there's a way to do that positively, and there's a way where it falls a bit flat. And we've got a things to avoid slide coming up, so I won't go into too much on that yet. But find ways to build connection. So obviously, as I mentioned, we started AltNet partly because James and I were really missing meeting new people. We had our colleagues and we had Zoom calls with friends of an evening, but we were both used to going out and chatting to people that we'd not met before and learning about them and connecting with them. And so we wanted to find a way to fix that. And obviously it was something that we weren't the only people having that struggle. So find ways that make sense for your business to build that connection, whether it's something like AltNet. Other companies have done drop-in drinks. Other companies have done set up Discords or LinkedIn groups, or all manner of different ways to connect and to just hang out. It doesn't have to be a sales thing. Obviously, ours is more business focused than a drinks one, for example. But it just recognizes that need for people to just meet. And obviously, when we get back to getting out and meeting in person again, we'll have already built relationships. We haven't spent this time looking inwards. We're still looking outwards and building that connection with new people that hopefully we get to meet in person, hopefully not too far in the future. And the other part of connection, as I mentioned before, is we want to feel good. So what are you doing that makes people feel good? What are you offering? Is it something that's free of charge that can make people feel good that they've got something? Or is it, as I said before, charity work or an initiative that helps? So really look at the messaging that you're using and what it says about your business, what it says about your brand, and bring it back to connection and how that starts a conversation with the people that are, bored or lonely or frustrated or angry. There's a lot of negative emotions going around, but there are a lot of positive emotions going around. There are people who are doing new business. There are people who are learning new skills. And we need to recognize that there are both sides of that coin, and that what works for some doesn't work for others. The same as during a normal situation, we're not marketing to everybody. We're marketing to the people that are our audience. Is our audience more likely to be angry and frustrated, or are they scared and sad? So think about your connection in terms of what your audience personas are likely to be feeling right now and how you can make a connection with them specifically. You may have audience personas in both camps. So think about doing content or marketing for each rather than doing a one size fits all. I think, we always talk about how we shouldn't do one size fits all marketing. That's particularly important at the moment. It will never stop being important, but because people have scaled back on their marketing, a lot of people have started to just do that one size fits all and not think about the individual target groups that they have within their overall target. So look at your personas. If you haven't done them, do personas. Then look at those personas and think about, we usually think about what keeps them up at night. What are their goals? What are their challenges? But add to that, how are they feeling right now? What does this type of person, how are they going to react to the situation that we're in and how that situation evolves? And tailor different bits of your marketing to different audiences.
We have had a question, actually, Natalie, before we move on.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is the name of your cat?
So the cat that was deleting everything is Jeff. Jeff Tiberius Vader. Jeff Vader from an Eddie Izzard sketch, and Tiberius because that's Captain James T. Kirk's middle name. Yeah, came up with the geekiest cat name I could. There is also another cat here that you didn't see who is called Stanley with an exclamation point. The exclamation point is a key part of his name because he has an exclamation point on his face.
Thank you very much.
And a brilliant example of how sometimes cats can build that connection. Which reminds me of, we were having a conversation with someone recently who was talking about, because everything's crazy, we are less drawn to the very, very polished videos at the moment than we are to people who make mistakes, have stumbles. I think the fumble effect is what it was called, James. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, the fact that my cat gate crashed and has gate crashed a video I tried to post, I posted it anyway. More people were interested in that than the ones where I'm talking about, expert things. So perfection isn't actually building a connection. That imperfection is much more enticing, much more interesting to people. So yes, excellent question. Thank you. So we talked about what you can do and what you should do, and now is the time to talk about the things that we shouldn't do. So things to avoid: making jokes about coronavirus. If your brand is super irreverent and skirts the edge of, appropriateness, then you might be able to get away with some jokes. That's not true of most businesses. It's very rarely true of B2B businesses. Some B2C can pull that off, but even so, I would still say to avoid it, because you don't know how your audience has been affected. Enough people have been very ill and sadly died that you don't know how many people in your target audience have been personally affected by what's going on. So even irreverent brands, but certainly non-irreverent brands, don't make jokes. It's too soon. It'll be too soon for quite a long time. Don't think short term. So a lot of what I've talked about today has been about brand building and building awareness of your brand, but building up a perception and reputation, because being very short term is not the way to do that. And a really good example is Norwegian Cruise Lines. So at the very start of the pandemic, they said to people, oh, no, it's okay. It won't affect tropical countries. The virus can't survive, because they were trying to keep short-term bookings from cancelling. Obviously, we know that's not the case. Too many countries in tropical regions have been hit. And what that does is it massively reduces credibility in that brand. So anything short-term thinking, trying to protect yourself in the very, very short term at the expense of customers, obviously protecting ourselves in the short term through other means like CBILS, bounce back loans, all that kind of stuff's great, but not in your marketing. Don't use this in your marketing unless there's a genuine reason. People don't need to hear about coronavirus every 5 minutes. this was something that happened a lot at the start. Every piece of content that was going out was about coronavirus. Every bit of marketing included it in some way, in these difficult times, in these uncertain times, in these unprecedented times. But even, I'm using Toyota as an example here. I don't remember if it was a Toyota ad, so I apologize to Toyota if it wasn't. But I saw a TV ad that, we know these are troubling times. We're here for you. This is all very difficult. Every Toyota is built with your safety in mind. Buy Toyota. And that kind of thing just falls so flat, because we know these are difficult and troubling times. I don't want to buy a Toyota, and I certainly don't want to buy one now that you've tried to manipulate me by making a car about coronavirus. It's not relevant. Another really key area to avoid is putting profit over people. So obviously that's something Norwegian Cruise Lines did. It's always bad, regardless of the situation. People don't like to be taken advantage of and don't like to think the businesses put profits over people. Just think of the backlash against Jeff Bezos, I never know how to pronounce his last name, at Amazon, because he's on the verge of becoming a trillionaire. That's something that happens at the expense of the people in the warehouses. So this is not new, but it's very, very surface level at the moment. It's very much what people are thinking about. So, if you're talking about sticking very rigidly to contract terms, even though your clients can't really meet those at the moment, or holding people to large cancellation fees when they're trying to save their business, a lack of flexibility. Obviously you have to protect your business as well, but a lack of flexibility around working with people means that your brand reputation, it becomes more mercenary. It becomes, well, I won't work with them because when there was a crisis and I needed their help, actually they charged me a load of extra money because I needed 5 minutes worth of support. So don't put profits before people. And then the last one, I know I just said don't put coronavirus in everything you do, but also don't ignore that that's the reality that we're living in. So I've seen things that just completely ignore what we're doing and carry on regardless. That's not reality. There were a lot of advertisers that pulled ads. So KFC had just started a finger looking good ad with loads of pictures of people going out to eat, licking their fingers. Obviously, that's the exact opposite. We were all being told not to touch our faces. So they pulled that campaign. They killed it because it was not the reality that we lived in. Within a couple of weeks of that campaign going live, I remember seeing it just before it all started. There was a great example I read recently, an agency that manages some social brands. They'd got a whole campaign planned at the beginning of March. It was all going to be about what to wear on a first date. It was obviously a clothing brand. They scrapped that campaign because social distancing, we're not going on first dates. But they didn't just scrap it. They did the thing, I should have added this word to my words that are overused, but they pivoted and started talking about what to wear on a Zoom date. So, with that slightly jokey, well, it doesn't matter if you're wearing pajama trousers, but this is what you might want to wear above the waist. So they recognized the reality that we're in, but they didn't say, because of coronavirus, you're all at home. They said, hey, so now that you're all dating on Zoom, here's how we do that. So you can still reference it, but not explicitly reference it. Just reference the fact that the world has changed. Another example, which is sort of the opposite in a way. So Bowden sent out their spring catalogue, and obviously that could come across as super insensitive because it's ignoring the reality that we're in. But the way they did it was quite interesting. So they sent a letter with the catalogue, and they said, and I'm going to read this verbatim actually because I thought it was really good. So they said, it might seem highly inappropriate to show you clothes for which you currently have no need, but we've already made the clothes. We've already taken the photograph. We've already printed the catalogues. It was too late to stop. We hope you don't find it horribly insensitive. So they recognized that reality is different, but they'd done a lot of work. And in order to protect their business, they still needed to market these clothes. So they did that, but they recognized that reality has changed. They also know their personas. The people that buy from Boden are, more likely to respond to that than dating on Zoom, perhaps. So again, it's looking back at the people that you want to do business with. How have their lives changed? What are they doing differently? So, I might not be dating, that might not be my persona, but I'm working from home. So you could do something on, comfy trousers and fancy tops, or whatever that happens to be. So don't over egg the pandemic pudding. That's a horrible phrase, I apologize. But don't ignore that reality is different. We're all doing things differently, and our lives look different, and we don't know when they're going to change. So the final thing not to do is pretend you have a crystal ball. I've seen so many people talk about, well, by August, everything's going to be fine. By the end of the year, everything's going to be terrible. You don't know. We don't know. The amount of different vaccine dates that I've seen, none of us know the answers, and certainly not small businesses, medium businesses. If we're not actively out there developing a vaccine, we have no expertise. So I've talked earlier about sharing your expertise. Make sure it's your expertise. Make sure it's something you actually have credibility within. Because if we're talking about what's coming next, if we don't know, we can make educated guesses. What's coming next for marketing? That's what we're talking about here, because I've worked in marketing for a very long time. I know a lot of marketers. We've talked a lot about what's coming next. But I also recognize that a lot of the things I've said, I've talked about, I hope it stays this way. I hope it continues to do this, because I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say people are going to start buying again in August, or people aren't going to buy cars until December, so don't market in this way. So keep to your own expertise, share that, because it is about that brand credibility. It is about making sure people recognize that you know what you're talking about, and you're not adding to a load of noise that's not adding value to what they're doing. So, as we talked about in our How to Run a webinar, you should always end with some next steps. So what comes next? Well, we'd like to offer an invitation to everyone to join us at AltNet Virtual Networking, because, as I've mentioned before, it has had rave reviews, but it is that way for businesses to connect with one another. And, networking is a form of marketing. So if you take nothing away, find online networking, build your audience that way, get your name out, keep building your brand. And we have another webinar coming up. So it'll be on Tuesday, the 2nd of June. And this one will be tech focused. So you'll hear more from James than from me, but it'll be about using technology for effective remote working. And again, like this one, if we'd done it at the very start of the pandemic, it would be quite a different topic to what we'd be doing in a couple of weeks. But now that everyone's been doing remote working for a while, it's time to reflect on how that's gone and where it goes next, and how to really optimize it so that businesses might want to keep a remote workforce. So that's what's coming up next. But now I'm going to throw over to James. Do we have any additional questions?
We do, yeah. So what is the best example of marketing you've seen in the last couple of months?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the Boden one I mentioned, I thought was excellent. That's why I included it. I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't mentioned that I've seen in the last few months. I think a lot of brands taking to video. So I saw a great video. I think it started as a trend on either Reddit or TikTok, but it was people grabbing something, throwing it off the screen, and then someone else would film a video of them catching a thing and throwing it, and they were all stitched together. Like I said, it may well have started on Reddit. The first one I saw was a toilet roll, obviously at the very start of this. But I've seen a couple of small brands do something similar, with their products. There was a makeup brand that someone would throw a piece of makeup, someone would catch it, often wearing gloves, and kind of look at the color, take a piece away, and then throw it to the next person. So I did think that was quite fun, because user-generated content, as I was talking with the testimonial videos, user-generated content makes people feel more connected to a brand, because it's not the brand saying, hey, look at us. It's lots of people who care about this brand enough to take some time out of their day. So anything that uses UGC, user-generated content, I think is fun at the best of times, particularly good right now, because it also gets people involved. It gives them something to do. If we're all stuck at home, spending 20 minutes trying to film yourself catching a toilet roll seems quite fun.
Great, thank you. Another question is, if you make a video, where can you post it in addition to LinkedIn?
Okay, good question. So depends on the type of video and the length of video that you're doing. So there's, as I mentioned, loads of different types of video. So for example, the me and James talking to camera, we use on LinkedIn. You could also use that type on Facebook, depending on the type of Facebook audience you have. Twitter, it doesn't work as well on. Explainer videos are slightly better on Twitter, or fact-based videos, so statistics. But you can use video across all the social platforms. If it's a longer video, for example, this one, or even a 2 to 5 minute product video, explainer video, put that on YouTube and put it on your website. Obviously, you can host it on YouTube and embed it on your website, or host it on your website as well if you prefer. And then make sure you optimize the description, so that if people search for, if someone searches what marketing should we be doing right now, hopefully this video would come up. When you do search results, you can usually see a line of video results for that topic as well. So YouTube is really good for SEO. You're not going to get a vast number of views like a YouTube celebrity might, but it does give you that little SEO boost. You can also cut videos down. So maybe take a 10-second clip, use that. That would be better on Twitter and Instagram if you have a visual business and therefore have an Instagram presence. We don't really do Instagram because there's not a lot of exciting things we can post. But if you do, then 10-second videos in Instagram stories or in the feed. So those are the main areas I'd use them. And then, as I mentioned, with hosting on YouTube and putting on your website, you can put all sorts of videos on your website. Do a video version of a blog post, or write a blog post about the video that you've already done and embed the video within that blog post. People like video content, and so the more places you can put it, the better. But yeah, social media, your website and YouTube would be the primary ones to focus on.
Okay, thank you. So the last question was, if you were more of a bricks and mortar type organization at the moment, and you haven't really fully opened up yet, what kind of marketing could you be thinking about doing?
Yeah, really good question. So obviously a lot of what I've talked about is potentially a bit more B2B, things like webinars, but the content and video definitely more B2C. So if you're bricks and mortar and you are doing e-commerce, then that content and that video side definitely very relevant. If you're not open and you don't have an online selling side of your business, then it's a little bit more challenging, because obviously when you can't move into that sort of, now we can talk about products a bit more. It's about reassurance in that case. So reassure people that you're still around, reassure people that when you do open, it will be safely. So perhaps we're not open yet because due to the way our store is constructed, or due to the products that we sell, we can't do that in a way that's socially distanced or, safe for our colleagues and for our customers. So we're going to do it this way. And once we have these things in place, we'll be open. So give people a sort of step-by-step, this is what's happening right now. This is what we're going to do next. This is how we're going to keep you safe. And you can do that in videos and in text-based content. I would suggest the homepage of your website should change regularly. So rather than focusing on the blog as much as you might if you were B2B, make the homepage more of a central hub of information. So what can people expect from you? When can they come and visit? When will it be safe? And what are you doing to support them?
I have to say, when one of the takeaway places I like to go sent me an email saying we're opening soon, that did get me quite, I was, quite excited. So
yeah, so that's a really good point. On that homepage where you have here's what's happening, have a sign up link, sign up for updates, and send them. I'm not talking weekly updates, it depends when you're going to be opening, but do that. We're opening soon, this is what we're putting in place, as an email to people as well, so that you can really build that excitement around the reopening. You have an opportunity to sort of generate a little bit of buzz. It does depend on the product, of course, and your personas. So are your personas desperately hoping you're going to really open soon? Then you could focus on building that buzz. Are they keen to come back but scared? Then you focus more on the safety side. Just build that kind of perception that we are coming back. This is what to expect.
Great, thank you. That was all the questions.
Okay, brilliant. So I did mention email marketing briefly. It's not one of the slides because it's sort of a minefield at the moment. But as we have a few minutes left, I will talk about it a little bit. If you have an existing database, then what we've done, so we have different databases. We have a client database and we have prospect database and people who've signed up for our marketing list. Obviously, we handle each of those differently. So our client database, and marketing to your existing clients is a legitimate thing. But again, we're not pushing product. We're not saying, hey, you have this from us, you could also have this other thing. That's absolutely not appropriate right now. What we've been doing is telling them what we're doing and what they can expect from us. So, at the very beginning, right, everyone's working from home. We're only doing site visits in dire emergencies. And then as each stage of government advice has come out, we'll send an update saying, right, in light of the advice, this is now what's happening. And this is what you can expect. So that's really important, because building your credibility isn't just a pre-sales marketing side of things. It is a post-sale marketing as well. So nurturing our existing customers so that they know that we care, that we're paying attention. In fact, we have a couple of suppliers who didn't do that, and some where it's an industry you'd really expect them to tell people what is happening and what they're doing to support you. So we're glad we did, because we certainly noticed the lack of it from people we work with. So that's the client side. Then for our prospects or people on our marketing list, it's very much the same as what I was talking about in terms of promoting content and using social media. So it's, here's what we're doing to add value. Here's how we can help you. So if you've created an ebook that's really, really valuable to a segment of your audience, send it to that segment. No expectation, just, hi, we've put this together and I think it would be valuable, and push that out. So again, you're building that brand awareness, you're sharing that expertise. So it ties in with all of the other bits and pieces that we've talked about throughout this webinar. Do you have any questions, James?
I don't actually know. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so
Can we wrap it up then, do you think?
Yes, yeah. So if we wrap up, so like I said, next webinar is on remote working technology on the 2nd of June. You should be able to see that on our website. We will email the recording of this round once we've got that live. And if anyone comes up with any questions that they didn't think of during this portion, do feel free to email me, and I'll give you the best answer I can. Thank you very much for coming.